John sat motionless in the expansive living room, its elegant decor a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling inside him. The polished marble floors gleamed beneath the grand chandelier, and the walls were adorned with priceless family portraits that whispered legacies of success and loyalty, none of which seemed to include him. His mother, Sophia, stood before him with an unsettling smile, her eyes betraying none of the compassion he desperately sought. Beside her, Ryan, his adopted brother, lounged comfortably, oblivious to the storm his presence stirred within John. "We have made our decision," Sophia's voice cut through the thick silence like a blade. "Ryan's college fund will be fully supported. As for you, John, we believe it's best to withdraw financial assistance. We expect you to find your own path." The words fell heavy, each syllable landing like stones on John's heart. He recalled this scene from a past life, how similar conversations had shattered his dreams, how every promise he'd clung to had crumbled under the weight of his family's favoritism. Yet, this time, reborn with knowledge and unyielding resolve, he refused to let despair consume him. His fingers clenched discreetly, nails pressing into his palms, but his face remained a mask of serene detachment. Beneath that calm exterior, a war drum beat steadily, a rhythmic countdown to a vengeance long in the making. The betrayal coursed through his veins, bitter as poison, but his mind was sharp, calculating every move ahead. He would not be the broken son again. Sophia's gaze shifted nervously as she noticed the absence of tears or protests. "John, this is for the family's good. Ryan's future is bright. We expect you to understand." Understanding. The word tasted sour on John's tongue. He swallowed his bitterness and nodded ever so slightly, his lips curling into a slow, deliberate smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Inside, he was already rewriting the narrative, turning the pages toward a new ending where he held the pen. Ryan's smug smile faltered as he caught the subtle shift in John's demeanor. The once complacent brother now sensed a storm brewing beneath the surface. But it was too late. John's silence was louder than any outburst, his quiet strength a weapon forged through pain and rebirth. As the family's conversation drifted into hollow pleasantries, John's mind raced, each word, each gesture, etched into his memory. He had lived through this betrayal before, but this time, he would not be a spectator to his own destruction. The path ahead was treacherous, but John was ready to walk it alone, armed with the cold fire of determination. Outside, the city lights flickered, mirroring the fierce resolve burning within him. The chapter that once ended in defeat was now poised for revolution. The war drum inside him beat on, steady and unrelenting, echoing the promise that this time, the story would be his to write. John carried himself with a quiet intensity that set him apart in any room, though he rarely sought attention. His dark hair was neatly kept, and his eyes held the depth of someone who had endured much but never surrendered. The years of neglect and favoritism he endured had carved resilience into his soul, shaping a mind that was as sharp as it was patient. Every setback he had faced was a brick laid in the foundation of his determination to rise. His intelligence was evident not just in his academic achievements, but in the way he observed the world around him, calculating, learning, and preparing for the battles yet to come. Sophia, John's mother, was a woman of polished grace and unsettling charm. She moved through their lives like a puppeteer, orchestrating family dynamics with careful precision. Her favoritism for Ryan was not subtle, it was a calculated performance perfected over years. Sophia's eyes gleamed with a mixture of pride and possessiveness when she spoke of Ryan, yet when they landed on John, a faint coldness crept in. Her emotional manipulation was her weapon, she wielded guilt and affection in equal measure to keep the family's fragile balance in her favor. Beneath her poised exterior was a woman driven by image and control, blind to the quiet suffering of her eldest son. Ryan, the adopted brother, was the embodiment of entitlement disguised beneath a charismatic smile. His effortless charm and confident demeanor masked a selfish nature that thrived on the indulgence of those around him. Ryan moved through life expecting doors to open and problems to dissolve, a belief fostered by Sophia's unwavering support. He was a master of playing the victim when confronted, with perfectly timed tears and a practiced innocence that deflected scrutiny. Yet, beneath that facade lay a reckless ambition, fueled by a lack of consequence and a disregard for those who stood in his way, especially John. Deborah was a stark contrast to the family's polished veneer. As John's best friend and steadfast confidant, she was a pillar of unwavering loyalty and quiet strength. Her presence offered John a refuge from the storm of family politics and betrayal. With soft brown eyes and a calm demeanor, Deborah's empathy was genuine, and her support came without expectation. She understood the depths of John's pain and the fire that burned beneath his calm exterior. Deborah's intuitive nature and steadfast encouragement grounded John, reminding him he was not alone in his fight. Together, these four lives intertwined in a complex dance of power, betrayal, and resilience. John's rebirth had not gone unnoticed. Beneath his calm and collected exterior, a new force was gathering, a resolve to challenge the family's twisted dynamics and claim the future that had long been denied to him. Sophia's manipulations, Ryan's arrogance, and even the quiet loyalty of Deborah would all play their parts in a story rewritten by John's unyielding will. This was not just the tale of a favored son and a neglected one. It was a story of transformation, a boy forged in the fires of rejection, emerging as a man determined to shatter the illusions that had kept him captive. With each calculated step, John moved closer to reclaiming not only his place in the family but his very identity. The quiet strength that defined him was no longer a refuge, it was a weapon sharpened by pain and rebirth, ready to carve a new path through the shadows of his past. John's world fractured anew under the weight of his parents' cold declaration. The announcement came during a lavish family gathering meant to celebrate Ryan's latest achievement, a costly business venture promising greatness. Sophia, radiant in an elegant gown, took center stage as she declared her unwavering support for Ryan's ambitions. The room erupted in polite applause, eyes gleaming with admiration for the adopted son who had, once again, captured their collective favor. John sat quietly at the edge of the room, the smile on his lips fragile and forced. The words cut deep. His college fund was not just withdrawn, it was erased, a public testament to his parents' judgment. Behind the glittering facade, the truth simmered darker than anyone admitted. John soon uncovered whispers of Ryan's failing business, plagued by poor decisions and mounting debts. Yet, the family's blind loyalty cloaked him in protection. No one dared challenge the favored son's narrative. Sophia's influence ensured that inconvenient facts were swept under the rug, replaced by carefully crafted stories of resilience and potential. John watched helplessly as Ryan's facade of success crumbled in shadows hidden from the family's eyes. At college, the sanctuary John once believed in quickly dissolved into a hostile arena. Deborah's rival clique, sensing an opportunity, launched a covert campaign to undermine him. False rumors spread like wildfire, questions about his character, insinuations of academic dishonesty, whispers that sought to erode his reputation. These attacks were subtle yet devastating, seeping into the minds of professors and peers alike. Despite his relentless efforts and exemplary record, John found himself isolated, a target of silent hostility. The most crushing blow came when the scholarship he had worked tirelessly to secure was unjustly revoked. The official explanation cited changes in funding priorities, but the truth was far more insidious, a calculated move influenced by unseen hands favoring Ryan's allies. The revocation was not just a financial setback, it was a message that John's efforts were meaningless in the eyes of those who controlled his fate. Each rejection, each act of sabotage, chipped away at the foundation of his dreams, threatening to collapse the fragile hope he still harbored. Deborah remained a steadfast presence, her quiet support a balm against the relentless storm. Yet even she could not shield him from the pervasive sense of betrayal that seeped into every corner of his life. The campus, once a place of promise, had transformed into a battleground where loyalty was currency and survival demanded vigilance. John's internal struggle deepened as he grappled with the suffocating weight of his circumstances. The favoritism that had defined his family's dynamics now extended into every aspect of his world, leaving him to fight battles on multiple fronts. His resolve, though tested, refused to yield. Each obstacle became fuel, each slight a spark igniting the fire of determination kindled by his rebirth. The conflict was no longer just about family favor or academic success, it was a war for identity, respect, and justice. John understood that to reclaim his future, he would have to navigate this labyrinth of deception and hostility with precision and patience. The stakes had never been higher, and the path ahead was perilous, but John was ready to face the fight, armed with the quiet strength that had carried him through the darkest moments of his past and the rebirth that now defined his destiny. John lay awake in the darkness of his small apartment, the silence pressing down like a suffocating weight. The memories of rejection and betrayal replayed endlessly in his mind, each scene sharper, more vivid than the last. His parents' cold dismissal, the whispered rumors at college, the hollow smiles of those who once called themselves friends, all had carved deep wounds. Yet this time, the pain did not break him. Instead, it forged a barrier, a growing wall of emotional detachment that kept the anguish at bay. Gone was the boy who once desperately sought approval and love from Sophia and Ryan. His affection for them had slowly withered, replaced by a cold emptiness that settled in his chest. The warmth of familial bonds had been smothered beneath layers of betrayal and neglect. Yet, amidst this desolation, John found an unexpected source of strength in Deborah. Her unwavering loyalty and quiet understanding provided a steady anchor, a reminder that he was not alone in the storm. Deborah's presence was a balm to his frayed spirit. She listened without judgment, her eyes reflecting the depth of her empathy. Her faith in him never wavered, even when his own hope faltered. Together, they shared moments of rare comfort, small victories, fleeting laughter, and the unspoken promise of solidarity. In her, John discovered a mirror for his resilience, a quiet force that reinforced his resolve. But beneath this growing detachment, a fierce hunger simmered, an unrelenting desire for justice that burned brighter with each betrayal. John's grief was no longer raw sorrow but a calculated fuel, driving him to reclaim what had been stolen. He began to craft a silent response. One not of desperation but of strategic precision. Every sleepless night was spent plotting, analyzing weaknesses, and anticipating moves. The emotional landscape within John was a paradox of stillness and storm. His face, calm and unreadable to the outside world, concealed the turmoil beneath. Memories of past failures, moments when he had faltered, when hope had slipped through his fingers, served not as chains but as lessons. They shaped his new identity, one tempered by pain yet unbroken, wounded yet resolute. John's detachment was not coldness born of indifference but a shield forged through survival. It allowed him to observe without becoming vulnerable, to endure without breaking. This emotional armor gave him clarity, a sharpened focus that channeled his pain into purpose. Each memory of rejection strengthened the foundation upon which he would build his comeback. The growing distance between John and his family was palpable. The love he once felt for Sophia and Ryan had dissolved into icy disappointment, a void where warmth had resided. Their actions had spoken louder than words, severing bonds with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Yet John did not seek reconciliation, his sights were set elsewhere. He sought not their forgiveness but his own vindication. In the quiet moments alone, John allowed himself the rare indulgence of vulnerability. Tears would sometimes escape unbidden, a reminder of the boy he once was. But they were fleeting, quickly replaced by steely determination. He refused to be defined by their rejection, instead, he would redefine himself on his own terms. The emotional struggle was a crucible, refining John's character and sharpening his will. Grief and hunger intertwined, creating a complex mosaic of feelings that propelled him forward. He was no longer the passive victim of circumstance but an active architect of his destiny. The pain of the past was now the blueprint for a future forged in resilience and retribution. As the nights grew longer and the battles more relentless, John found solace in the knowledge that his silence was not surrender. It was the calm before the storm, the stillness that precedes decisive action. With Deborah's steady support and his own burgeoning strength, John prepared to step from the shadows of betrayal into the light of justice. The emotional struggles that once threatened to consume him had become the very fuel that would ignite his rise. John moved with quiet precision, his rebirth granting him patience and clarity absent in his previous life. The seeds of his silent rebellion had already been sown, but now it was time to gather the weapons he would wield against the family that had cast him aside. He knew that open confrontation would be futile without undeniable proof, evidence that would shatter the illusions carefully constructed around Ryan's success and Sophia's control. Deborah became his invaluable ally in this clandestine mission. Her position within the university's administration granted her access to information few outsiders could obtain. Together, they pieced together fragments of financial statements, internal emails, and whispered rumors about Ryan's startup, an enterprise once heralded as the family's golden ticket but now teetering on the brink of collapse. Documents revealed misappropriation of funds, questionable contracts awarded to shell companies, and a mounting pile of unpaid debts concealed beneath layers of deception. John's eyes narrowed as he reviewed the evidence late into the night, each discovery fueling his determination. Sophia's name surfaced repeatedly, entwined in strings of manipulative correspondence and strategic decisions designed to safeguard Ryan's faltering empire at any cost. The realization that his mother had actively perpetuated the cycle of favoritism and deceit ignited a cold fire within him. Her graceful facade masked ruthless ambition, and now John held the keys to expose her carefully guarded secrets. Amid this growing mountain of incriminating material, John stumbled upon something unexpected, a legal clause buried deep within the will of a late relative, a distant aunt known for her quiet philanthropy and sharp intellect. The clause granted John unprecedented control over certain family trusts and assets should he prove himself the rightful heir through a set of conditions that, until now, had remained dormant. This loophole was more than a legal technicality, it was a potential game-changer, a lever powerful enough to shift the family's balance of power. John's heart quickened as he grasped the significance of this discovery. The path to reclaiming his rightful place was no longer a distant hope but a tangible possibility. Yet, he understood the stakes were higher than ever. Revealing these truths would not only dismantle Ryan's fragile empire but also fracture the family itself, igniting conflicts that could consume them all. Carefully, John began to craft a strategy. He would not act hastily. Every piece of evidence was catalogued meticulously, every angle considered. Deborah's insights proved indispensable as she guided him through the labyrinthine corridors of bureaucracy and legal intricacies. They identified weaknesses in Ryan's financial dealings and traced the flow of funds to accounts that suggested embezzlement and tax evasion. They uncovered letters hinting at Sophia's involvement in manipulating family votes and silencing dissent. John's resolve hardened. The tools of exposure he now held were not just weapons but instruments of justice. His rebirth had not merely been a chance to start over, it was an opportunity to correct the wrongs that had been inflicted upon him and to reclaim the dignity stripped away by favoritism and deceit. As days turned into weeks, John's secret operation advanced steadily. He remained outwardly composed, his calm demeanor belying the storm gathering beneath. The silent war he waged was as much about survival as it was about retribution. Each discovery brought him closer to the moment when he would reveal the truth, append the family's carefully curated narrative, and assert his rightful place. This second twist in John's journey marked a turning point, a moment where the shadows of betrayal began to dissipate under the light of truth. Armed with knowledge, legal advantage, and unwavering determination, John transformed from the overlooked son to a formidable force poised to rewrite the legacy his family had tried to deny him. John entered the grand hall where the family meeting was set to take place, his steps measured and his expression calm. The opulent room, adorned with gilded mirrors and crystal chandeliers, reflected the wealth and influence his family wielded, a world that had once excluded him but was now the stage for his reckoning. As he walked in, eyes turned sharply, whispers fluttered like shadows among the guests. At the head of the room stood Sophia, resplendent yet visibly tense, flanked by Ryan whose usual confident smirk had faltered ever so slightly. The meeting was called under the guise of celebrating Ryan's recent business success, but John had ensured the agenda had changed. His team of legal advisors, quiet yet authoritative, filled the back of the room. Among them stood Deborah, her steady gaze a source of quiet strength. John cleared his throat, commanding attention without raising his voice. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his tone measured and deliberate. "I have something important to share, truths that have been concealed for far too long." The room fell into a hush, the anticipation palpable. From a sleek leather folder, John produced documents, emails, and financial records meticulously compiled over months. "These," he said, spreading the papers across the mahogany table, "are irrefutable proofs of mismanagement, deception, and corruption within Ryan's startup." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "But it does not stop there. These documents also reveal the enabling actions of those who should have upheld accountability, my parents." Sophia's lips tightened, her eyes darting nervously, while Ryan's face paled beneath the confident facade. Murmurs rippled through the room as John detailed the intricate web of financial fraud, inflated invoices, diverted funds, tax evasion schemes, all orchestrated under the protection of family loyalty. John then shifted focus to the legal leverage he had uncovered. "Furthermore," he continued, "a clause in the will of our late relative grants me controlling interest over family trusts and assets currently supporting these ventures." He gestured to his legal team, who presented formal notices initiating a hostile takeover of these assets. The room erupted in stunned gasps and whispered shock. Sophia's face flushed with a mix of anger and humiliation. Ryan, stripped of his earlier bravado, sank back into his chair, eyes fixed on the floor. Deborah stepped forward, unwavering. "John has shown courage and integrity where others have failed," she declared firmly. "We stand with him in pursuit of truth and justice." John's gaze swept the room, now divided between disbelief and grudging respect. "For too long, favoritism and deceit have dictated our family's path," he said, voice steady and cold. "Today, that ends. I reclaim not just assets, but my dignity and rightful place. This is not revenge, it is restoration." Sophia attempted to interject, but John raised a hand, silencing her. "No more words can mask the truth. The time for reckoning is here." The meeting concluded with formal votes ratifying John's takeover. Media outlets, tipped off by Deborah, awaited outside to capture the unfolding drama. Sophia and Ryan were thrust into the harsh glare of public scrutiny, exposed for their roles in the scandal, their reputations crumbling. As cameras flashed and reporters pressed, John and Deborah emerged united. John's victory speech was concise yet powerful, a testament to his transformation. "I chose myself," he declared, "not as an act of defiance but of self-respect. This moment marks a new chapter, one written by honesty, resilience, and strength." The crowd erupted in applause, some in disbelief, others in admiration. John's journey from overlooked son to commanding leader had come full circle, his calm resolve reshaping the family legacy forever. ChatGPT said. John stood at the threshold of a new life, the echoes of the past fading but never fully silenced. The aftermath of the family confrontation had transformed everything, relationships fractured, alliances shifted, and reputations forever altered. Yet for John, the true journey was just beginning, the arduous task of rebuilding himself from the ruins of betrayal and reclaiming a future defined by his own choices. Gone were the days when John relied on the tenuous support of a family that had repeatedly cast him aside. Now, he moved with a quiet confidence earned through struggle and victory. His peers and mentors, once skeptical of his potential, began to recognize the depth of his resilience and integrity. Invitations to collaborate arrived, not out of obligation but genuine respect. Doors that had remained closed for years now opened to reveal opportunities ripe with possibility. John's vision extended beyond mere personal success. He was determined to create a venture grounded in transparency, ethics, and innovation. Drawing from his experiences, he launched a startup focused on sustainable technology, a sector often overlooked but vital for the future. The company's foundation rested on principles that contrasted sharply with the deceit and greed he had witnessed in his family's dealings. John's leadership style was inclusive and honest, fostering an environment where trust and accountability thrived. As the startup grew, so did John's reputation as a thoughtful and principled entrepreneur. He prioritized mentorship, offering guidance to young professionals facing challenges similar to those he had endured. His story became a beacon of hope, illustrating that success was attainable without compromising one's values. Conferences and panels invited him to share insights, further solidifying his standing in the business community. Meanwhile, Ryan's downfall unfolded publicly and painfully. Legal proceedings stemming from his fraudulent activities progressed steadily, exposing the extent of his mismanagement and deception. The media coverage was relentless, peeling back layers of his carefully constructed image. Social circles that had once embraced him now distanced themselves, wary of the taint his scandal carried. The consequences were not merely financial or reputational. Ryan's relationships frayed under the strain, leaving him isolated. Sophia's reaction to these events was complex and fraught. The mother who had once championed Ryan now faced the reality of his unraveling and John's ascent. Her favoritism, once a source of control, became a liability she could no longer sustain. Publicly, she maintained a composed demeanor, attending meetings and events with the polished grace expected of her station. Privately, however, there was a palpable tension, an acknowledgement of John's newfound authority and influence that she begrudgingly accepted. John, for his part, harbored no desire for retribution beyond the justice already served. His focus remained on forging a life defined by authenticity and purpose. The wounds inflicted by his family's past favoritism had left scars, but they also instilled a profound understanding of his own worth. In reclaiming his identity, John found a peace that revenge alone could never provide. With Deborah's continued support, John navigated the complexities of his evolving world. Their friendship deepened, rooted in mutual respect and shared history. Together, they celebrated milestones and weathered challenges, a testament to the enduring power of loyalty. John's days were filled with the rhythms of creation and growth, late nights refining product designs, early mornings mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs, and moments of quiet reflection atop his office's rooftop, gazing at the cityscape that had witnessed his transformation. Each achievement was a reminder that the past did not dictate his future. As his startup flourished, John also engaged in philanthropy, establishing scholarships and programs to assist students from marginalized backgrounds, those denied opportunities as he once had been. This work was not just charity. It was a commitment to breaking cycles of neglect and fostering environments where potential could flourish unhindered. The family ties that had once bound John in chains now loosened, replaced by boundaries he set to protect his well-being and values. Visits home became less frequent, more measured, and marked by careful civility. The wounds between him and Sophia remained, but the space between them was filled with an uneasy respect rather than open hostility. John's journey was neither simple nor free from pain, but it was unequivocally his own. He had stepped from the shadows of favoritism and betrayal into a light he had forged through courage, resilience, and unwavering commitment to himself. In reclaiming his life, John discovered that true strength lay not in vengeance, but in the ability to rise, rebuild, and redefine one's destiny. John stood alone on the rooftop, the city sprawling endlessly beneath the fading light. The cool evening breeze brushed against his face, carrying with it the faint hum of life from streets far below, cars weaving like rivers of light, distant voices mingling with the soft rustle of leaves. Above, the sky painted itself in hues of amber and violet, the sun slipping quietly behind towering buildings, signaling the close of another day and the promise of a new beginning. For a moment, John closed his eyes and breathed deeply, savoring the tranquility that now settled within him. The tumult of the past, the betrayals, the battles, the heartaches, felt distant, as if belonging to someone else's story. The choices his parents had made, the favors they had granted to Ryan, no longer held power over him. Those old chains had been broken, replaced by something far stronger, his own will. He opened his eyes and looked out at the horizon, where the city's lights began to twinkle like stars come to rest on earth. A slow smile curved his lips, not of triumph born from vengeance, but of quiet peace forged in self-discovery. The path had been long and fraught with hardship, but every step had led him here, to a place where he was finally free to write his own narrative. Softly, almost to himself, John whispered, "I chose myself, and that was the first real victory." The words hung in the cooling air, a testament not just to survival but to transformation. Behind him, the door to the rooftop closed gently, marking the end of one chapter. Ahead, the blank pages of the future awaited, unwritten and full of possibility. As the last rays of sunlight faded, John's silhouette stood firm against the glowing skyline, a symbol of resilience and hope. In this moment, beneath the vast expanse of the darkening sky, a new story began, one authored by his own hand, unbound by the past and driven by the promise of all that was yet to come.